I sometimes think I have that face disease where you can't recognize people's faces. Yeah, exactly. That's so self-involved.
He's on his way.
Standing next to Jeff, he's not going to recognize you.
Yeah, Jean was gonna go and sit in for him. She was gonna say, here he comes.
There he is now. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Ward.
Who opens these children?
No, I'm in the longest one.
Oh, isn't
Oh,
it?
he's the longest one.
Well, I'll open the meeting up then, let Tyler hangs his coat up. So this is a joint meeting of the Select Board and Budget Committee, and we have a full complement on the Select Board. Bill, and Tyler, and we've got Don Parkhurst today, Mary's here, Carl next to me, Andy Sliver, Al Lennis made it, Dick Reynolds, and Leslie. And Andrew won't be able to join us today, so. Without further ado, should we get right into it? And we just go by our agenda and talk about library first? Is that the way we're doing it, Nicole? Or?
Sure. Involve the whole course of action.
I have the clicker, so.
Great.
Okay.
Corinne, it's all you.
All right, thank you. I'm Corinne Chronopoulos, the library director, and I will be as brief as I can. I know we have a lot to get through tonight. I did want to introduce our elected board of trustees. Tina Krebo is our chair, Karen Struthers, our treasurer, Laura Hansen is in Florida, lucky her, Chris Mann, and Peggy Van Valkenburg, who's not here yet. And then we have 3 active alternates as well, Eric McCall, Kristen Ramey, and Diane Hansen, who's in the back. So the Board of Trustees hires and oversees the library director. They approve the library budget, and they approve policy. So that's their role. Okay, so first I want to show you some happy pictures of the library in use. An interesting thing that's been happening this past year is that our early literacy programming has grown. Specifically our baby story time. We have between 15 and 20 babies every Wednesday morning. So that's about 35 people at that program. So it's a good example of the growth of all of our programming. We've also had a huge boost in renting out our rooms. So we have, you might have seen on that infographic that I sent around, in 2023, we rented our 5 rooms 1,500 times, which is an incredible number. So that's 2 study rooms. This is the classroom pictured here, our boardroom, and then our large function hall. The classroom and the boardroom both can do hybrid meetings, meaning Zoom, so we can have virtual and in person. So you can imagine that takes a lot of staff time. Each one of those rooms needs to be booked. We do have booking online, but we're training them on the technology, we're welcoming them, we're unlocking the doors, we're explaining the rules. So it's just a lot more work, but a great service that we're offering to the community. We have also stepped it up in civic literacy, which is great to highlight today in our primary day. But we highlight what other town departments are doing. We've hosted a series of debates. So that's very important. And then the other area of growth is just with our teens. So one of the things that we said when we built the library is our goal was to attract our teen users to be that after-school place, and we've actually seen it happen, which is really exciting. So the bus drops them off right after school. We have our young adult space that's in constant use. At 4 o'clock today, I went around and counted kids, and there was 8. So it's just kind of, that's a slow day, but usually we have between, I'd say, 15 to 20 kids every day after school. We're actually shutting down our children's room for a week or 2 in February because we're switching the space around so that the middle school area is right in the front of the children's room, because we found that the middle schoolers, they're not quite ready to be in the young adult space, but they look in the children's room and think, oh, that's for babies. So we're swapping it around so when they walk by, it's very clear, oh, this is the spot for me. That's the middle school spot. Okay, so we'll get into the numbers. Our overall expenditure increase is pretty minimal. We're asking for $2,089 more. It comes down to 4 line items. I'll give you a little background on each one and take your questions. The easy one is our facility. Because our visits are up so dramatically, so many people renting those rooms, so many people coming to programs. We need more soap, more toilet paper, more paper towels. We also are taking very good care of our HVAC system and changing our filters regularly, and all those expenses have gone up slightly. The other area we're asking for an increase is in our digital services. In your paperwork, I think the line item is called computer services. But what we're doing, in a nutshell, is, the library has a print collection, right? Physical items. We also have downloadable items, ebooks and audiobooks. We have streaming content, movies, television shows, and those are all through different systems. And so what we're doing this year is we're creating one platform so that when our patron searches a book, I'll just say Harry Potter, they're gonna find Harry Potter physical book. Oh, they also have it as an ebook. Oh, I can download it as an audiobook. Oh, they have the movie, etc. So they're gonna be able to see everything all together, and it also will be an app for their phone. So it's a huge project. I'm really excited about it. So we're asking for an increase so we can get that done. Our print collections, we've kept that number flat for many, many years, but shipping has gone up and demand. So I typically try not to buy 2 copies of the same title, but I'm finding that, there's 7 people waiting for the book Northwoods, which I highly recommend, excellent book. So I'm gonna buy a second copy so they're not waiting weeks and weeks for it. And lastly, we are asking for an increase of, we have a part-time person that's working 28 hours a week, and we're asking to make them full-time. So actually, let me just go to this. Here we go. So we would like to have our circulation manager have full-time hours. This person's been working at the library for, 5 years now or so. They're a certified paralibrarian, and it's really about the workload. So because we're so busy, we're tracking over 30,000 items, making sure we're good stewards of those items, that they come back, that we, sometimes you have to write them overdue letters and call them millions of times. So the circulation manager manages the items, the patron data. They also pitch in with cataloging. And what we'd like them to also step up to do is to oversee the customer service desk, or we call it the help desk. So really check in with all the part-time people that are working and make sure they're continuously trained on their job and keeping up to date on how to give great service, follow policy, give instructions to patrons on how to use our services, etc. So they just can't keep up at 28 hours. I'd like to make them full-time.
Great. Does that person have a name?
Nick Boschman.
Does Nick want 40 hours?
Yes, I double checked. Yes, we worked collaboratively. I actually promoted them to the title because I thought they deserved it, but I would like to make them full-time officially as well. So that's the main increase.
Great. How many people are working? How many people do work full-time?
So we have 4 full-time. We'll go back to that earlier slide. Library director, the head of youth services, our young adult librarian, and our program and outreach librarian, who we are currently hiring. Because we had a retirement, and so when that retirement happened, we thought about how to reorganize smartly, is that a word? So that we could promote to a 5th position full-time, but not have a huge impact on the budget.
The consolidation of these platforms, is that something that you're doing with your staff internal to the library, or do you have other resources you're calling on?
We have other resources. So our database is currently hosted by Bywater Solutions. The database itself is open source. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term. So it means the technology is created by a community, and as everyone around the world uses that system and makes it better, we all benefit. So the system itself, it's not software that we pay for. We pay for the support. They host it on their servers. And so this company also specializes in the project that I talked about, and so we'll be working with them. Oop. Okay, so there's the summary again of the increases. And if there isn't any more questions, I can keep talking about revenue, or... Yeah, okay.
It's your favorite, isn't it?
That's my favorite topic.
Revenue, okay. So happy to report our operating revenues continue to grow. This year, the trustees have also budgeted the income from their trust funds. So it's not a lot of income, but we're budgeting an additional $4,000 of income. In the past, they've never taken income because they were saving for the library project, but now that we're done that, they're gonna start budgeting that. And then our nonprofit, the 1833 Society, wonderful group of folks. They have pivoted their mission because they're no longer raising money for a building. So they are now creating a planned giving structure so that we can continue to build our trust fund and have that additional support.
Corinne, do you have an increase in, or a change in number of people buying library cards from outside of Peterborough?
You know, I don't know the comparative number off the top of my head, but anecdotally, I would say yes. I think that number's gone up. And the trustees raised the fee slightly, so it's $85 for a one-year membership. I want to say I have like 130 non-residents.
So getting a better library seems like that would come.
Yeah. So I should put this photo in there just to show you the function space, and we are, you know, going to be actively marketing that so that we can bring in more revenue to, you know, because it's a beautiful room. It could be used for all types of purposes, as well as the outside. You know, that terrace can also be rented out. This was night market, and we had a bar out there. It was really cool.
What percent of usage of the rental spaces is actually paid for? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you a couple things. So I would say our classroom and our boardroom is probably 90% free, right? It's to not 501c3 nonprofits based in Peterborough. So not a lot of money coming in through those particular rooms. The 1833 room, though, is everyone pays. So year to date, I think we're at $7,000 of revenue. So I'm hoping to make 14 this year. Yeah, but I think we're going to start advertising a bit now that we've gotten into a groove.
Well, the library is not a profit center, so.
Right. Right, but, you know, if people are using it, we do need them to pitch in on the cleaning and the everything else.
Right.
Free use also includes town committees.
Yes, town committees and, you know, fire station meetings and trainings, yeah. If you have questions about other money that the trustees have, just in full transparency, this is the other money. So they have the 1833 fund. That is money that is restricted to capital improvements to the library campus. They have a savings account, with a little bit of money in it, and then they have 2 CDs currently that they're, and that $200,000 is from, again, contingency funding left from the library project. And so when we need any improvement to the library building, any unexpected expense, the library trustees are able to pay for it. It's also where the solar panels will be paid in full from when they're up.
5 years, 6 years?
About that left, yeah, maybe 5, yeah. And then the trusts held by the trustees of the town, that's that first bullet. That's we receive that income quarterly, and that's part of our revenue budget. And then the second group of trust funds is held by the library trustees. That's the balance, and pretty much all of those funds are restricted, you know, to books. One's just for art books, you know, so they have to be careful about how that money's spent. And that is it.
So you want to mention the revenue that you...
Yeah, so the revenue, the total is $51,550.
Question? The only thing I was just wondering about is, like, Lauren, you mentioned the big fund is limited to capital improvements. Looking 5-10 years down the road, are there capital improvements that are kind of being discussed at any level?
That's a great question. One of the things we have been thinking about doing is actually doing an analysis of the building and starting to forecast that. Okay, when are we going to have to do this, and planning for that? There's nothing on the horizon at this point that I can think of, but we are going to start planning.
Everything's working well with HVAC and everything?
Mm-hmm.
It's all worked well?
Yep.
Great.
I suspect you're going to have to make expenditures for technology. I bet technology isn't going to last forever, but...
Yeah, no, that's of course true.
All right. And Mary?
I just want to thank Tina and Corinne. I'm the liaison from the Budget Committee to the library, so we had a great meeting a couple weeks ago, really went over all the nuts and bolts. And so, Corinne, thank you for your leadership and vision. I think that this new library is such an asset to the community, and I really applaud your salary or the personnel changes. I think that's really going to be very much in line with the goals that you've laid out.
Thank you, Mary.
We all echo that. Thank you, Mary. Okay, great.
Thank you. Rick, if I just want to
Yes,
add one more. I'll
sure,
I'll
sorry.
piggyback a little bit on the sharing. But so for my job, we were one of the renters of the 1833 room last year. So I held the workshop there for Leadership New Hampshire, and it was great. We had we basically housed leaders, about 40, 45 people from across the state in their communities, and just the feedback from people about the space, about the library, and then when I told them the story of how it, came to be, like how we could afford it, I mean, people could not believe it. It was, it was definitely like, well, my town would never do that, or I could never, so I think that it's a very special building, it's a very special place, and it also was great because hopefully many of those people will rent it next time they want to come to Peterborough to hold an event. So thank you for that. And it was nice that we could have it there on a day that the library was closed. It was not our intention, but it ended up being a holiday that you were closed, and because of the way that you all set up the building, we could get the key and still use the room, but yet have the library itself closed off so that we couldn't access it. And so it worked beautifully, and I think it was a very smart way to do that so that the rentals could still go forward when the library's not open. So thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we do recreation next. Is that right? Lisa, you're up.
Hello, for those who don't know, I'm Lisa Kozel-Betts. I'm the recreation manager for our local recreation department. Here we go. The budget presentation that you'll see tonight is broken down into 3 basic sections. The budget summary, where I want to discuss and have a conversation about some recent changes, general fund budget overview, revenue and expense, as well as the revolving fund revenue and expense. Recreation budget overall, the general fund is down for budget requests, 4.17. The revenue expected is up by 4.59. Revolving fund expense is up by 5.68, and the revolving fund revenue is expected to be up 8.19%. All through this presentation, you're going to see little asterisks. That's part of our conversation tonight. It's a team counselor discussion. Here we go. Teen programming is something that we're really struggling with. Sounds like they've all gone to the library, which is great, so at least they're being serviced, so it's good. But this was a very vibrant program for us, Summer Teen, in 2019. COVID hit, world closed down, Summer Teen really didn't bounce back. We did have the initial interest, but we didn't have the staff. Everybody was asking for an astronomical rate of pay, and it just wasn't working. So basically, long and the short, we haven't run it in 3 years. We've tried. Every single year we've tried. We want to run it again, but not as Summer Teen Challenge. That day is coming on. Julia is proposing Teens in Action as a program. It's going to be two-week programs, and she can go into it more later, but just for a brief synopsis. So this was an add to the budget that you folks don't see, because I thought it was in the budget, but it was not. So that was my bad. So if we go with 2 leaders necessary for creating a Summer Teen program, and the program is viable, I propose that we take $7,751 and split it between the general fund and the recreation fund. In previous years, the general fund has carried the expense of the staff for summer teen, because the teenagers, you need to cost it or price it so it's affordable to the parents. You need to program it so it's fun for the kids. And it's hard to reach that balance. And that's kind of what we're struggling with. Julia, do you want to speak to this program at all?
I'm Julia, the program coordinator at the Recreation Department. So like Lisa said, we have struggled the last few years with the teen programs. In the last couple of years, I've also tried running a counselor and training program, but there was interest, but not as much as we would have liked, and I think it only reached a certain demographic of children. And so the goal of this new program that I'm proposing is called Teens in Action. And the kind of main theme with that program will be to get teens out of their houses, on their feet, moving, getting into the community, and having fun with each other, with role models that can really just get them out there and bring this back. This is kind of like our kind of new initiative to regrow our summer teen programs, which we haven't had in years, and I think is truly a disservice to these kids because they are our future employees and they are future contributors to this town, and we're currently not serving them in the summer right now, which is a huge disservice. There's a lot of teen programming at the library, it sounds like, but a lot of teens I also know from personal experience and middle schoolers get their extracurriculars at South Meadow. I know personally South Meadow is doing a wonderful job with after school activities right now, and what do we know about the school? It's not in session in the summer. And so these kids have very, very little in the summer right now. And so our goal is to just really get that interest, get the kids coming out of the woodwork, telling their friends, having fun, so that we get more kids in the future, get more kids connected with the rec department, so we can grow that programming in the future. And that's not going to happen if we don't do something. And so this is that something that I'm hoping can be a combination of adventure and fun and engagement and involvement with some leadership and team building and job readiness skills sprinkled in there. So I'm thinking of sending them to adventurous places where they can experience team building, and also giving them a grand tour of the lifeguard house, giving them, the experience to help out in playground program for a day, and exposing them to what the rec department offers, what the town offers, and things like that. So that's kind of my vision. I think it's so important, and recreation is, in a lot of senses, public health, and that we know the health of these kids, especially mentally, is super important. And so I really think that this is in line with the rec department's mission and is kind of a really great potential solution for the struggle we've had since 2018, 2019.
Julie, you want to explain that picture a little more? What's going on there?
This looks like from 2018.
Do you want me to explain it?
Well, it looks like a group from 2018, 2019.
In 2019, they're all kids with the 3 counselors, and this particular picture, you see the badges of the 4 guys in the back, right? They went to a jail, and those guys got a little talking to as far as good choices in life, what happens when you make bad choices, and that was a very popular thing that we offered. And I'd like to continue to do something like
I think one kind of key thing is a lot of the employees, we're hoping to hire 18 plus for this group because that age gap needs to have a gap. I can't have 16 and 17-year-olds leading 14-year-olds. There's just too much closeness there. But you can see, like, this was one of our counselors. Was that a counselor as well?
We have Maddie in the front that Julia just pointed to, Jordan's in the back, and then David's the one in the very back that's tall with the purple hat.
Yeah, and so I think these kids are going to be really great role models. I do think we almost were able to staff a teen program last summer. We had a couple people who were interested who applied for a job, and it didn't work out for a couple of different reasons. But I do think we have some older college students that could be interested in this, and I do think that given that we're only asking for 2 people as opposed to 3, I think this will be hopefully very viable and something we can definitely pull off.
Is this the program that you're proposing for the summer?
Is this modeled after something that's regional or statewide? And if so, how successful have those programs been?
So I think a lot of what my kind of idea and vision for this program is coming from is my experience as a former middle school teacher and really understanding this age group and understanding where they're at developmentally and what's going to get them to participate. I know that counselor and training programs are very popular in recreation departments, but again, based on the children that I saw participating in our program the last couple of years and just my own personal knowledge and experience with this age group, I think that, we weren't reaching everybody. And counselor and training can be tricky for those kids that just aren't ready to learn how to have a job. Some kids just want to learn through doing, they want to have fun, they need to get out of their house, and I think getting them out of their house at this age and exposed to role models and engaging with a group is almost more important at this age, because then we can sprinkle in that experience and then, they can apply for a job. But as far as the Summer Teen Challenge, I thought we had such a successful program in the past. We were kind of a model for that because there were 20 kids in it at one time. They'd come back year after year after year, and then they would work for us. Several of our current employees in the summer did Summer Teen Challenge. And so those two kinds of programs are pretty popular, but this particular one I'm proposing is a combination of Summer Teen, CIT, and my own experience with this age group.
Other questions?
I love your vision for it, and I agree with everything you said. I was just curious about, as far as the cost goes, you mentioned the wages reflected in the budget, but are the other costs already in the budget too, or are those, because it sounds like there's transportation costs, there's also supplies costs.
There will be, and if we get this program up off the ground, then we can approach the board for the revolving fund to pay for that. It would not come out of the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. There would be admission fees to parks associated with that, and that would be built into their registration fee, which we do want to keep reasonable. And so there might be an amount offset by the revolving fund. But I read online recently that you really have to price teen programs lower because it's hard to get teens to want to do things if their friends haven't done it first, and parents have these creatures that they're at that age where they are sometimes old enough to stay home alone, some of them aren't, and so it's really a delicate balance with teens and getting them to come out of their comfort zone.
What is the rate schedule for the teen?
The rate?
Yeah.
I'm looking at
It's $18 an hour is what we budgeted.
Oh, you're saying the price
For
of it.
salary?
What we're asking about the participants.
Yeah, the participants.
Oh, participants.
I'm still working on the fees. Today I was looking at a potential schedule and where they would go and the cost of the different programs, group rates, things like that. I'm thinking $200 to $300, $200 to $350 for 2 weeks.
For a 2-week period.
I want to try to keep it around there, but again, I'm probably about 50% through that process of picking a fee. I'm also budgeting it for 10 kids. If we have 10, 12 to 14 kids, we'll take them. 14's our comfort level kind of drop off with 2 staff.
And we have scholarships available as well?
Yeah, we have a scholarship program.
Is there a recognition award at the end of the program for them to acknowledge that they've been through this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When I did counselor and training the last 2 summers, they did get a certificate, and we celebrated, and they were very proud of that. I had not gotten to the point yet with this program where I was going to do that or not, so that's really a good question and a good thing for me to consider. Right now, it's looking like a lot of learning through doing, so a lot of the places I might send them would be a place I was thinking of sending them to a couple of natural science centers, a escape room, which is a lot of problem solving, team building, leadership, and so a lot of learning through doing. And so I think maybe as I further kind of plan the objectives of the program clearly, which I would probably put on our website, maybe perhaps at the end they would get something that demonstrates the core values of the program and how they followed those. I hadn't quite gotten that far, but now you have my wheel spinning.
The 200 to 350 brackets.
That's quite rough, yeah.
Is that what it costs per participant? Or is
That's
that
right.
what you think
That's what I'm
participants
thinking.
will be willing to pay to participate?
So when we kind of price a program like this, I'm comparing it pretty closely to like playground program. Now playground program is grades 1 through 6, but that's 8 weeks all day. This would be 2 weeks all day. And so I really wanted to price it similarly to what 2 weeks of playground program would be, because of course a parent is going to look at that. And so similar to what playground program would be, but probably even a little bit more affordable than that, just so that we could really get those kids in. Especially since they are in an age group where they could stay home, you know. Some parents might choose to stay at home to save money if they view it as too expensive. Does that answer your question?
Well, no, actually. You said that this cost could be shared
Yeah.
by the parents,
Mm-hmm.
and town money.
Mm-hmm.
This $250 to $350 target that you're formulating, would that be what you would expect, what you would propose that the parent would pay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But would participation cost more than that? You understand what I'm asking?
Yes, participation would cost more than that. That's why we're proposing splitting the two salaries between the general fund and the revolving fund. So the general fund would cover the salary of a counselor, so we wouldn't have to include that in the expense of the program.
Yeah. So the 200 to 350 is what you're targeting on the basis that the parent is more likely to sign up. That's tolerable.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's
Okay.
a balancing act, like I mentioned earlier, between the teens who want to do things and the parents who don't want to spend any money.
Yeah. 2 weeks, that could be an issue for some parents.
Mm-hmm.
Could be, we have scholarship.
Yeah, and like I said, the price is I'm only about, I would say 50% through my process of price. I still have to calculate in a few things, and we'd have to look at just overall costs. I'm still working on it.
Is this open to other communities or just
Yeah.
Peterborough?
Yeah, we accept residents and non-residents, all of our programs. Non-residents would certainly cost more.
And you're strictly thinking about a 1-2 week session right now in the planning, or are you thinking about a couple of sessions? possibly?
2-week sessions. We in that 7751, we budgeted for 2 counselors for 4 weeks.
And so you mentioned scholarships. I guess I'm just in understanding how scholarships, like typically a scholarship would just mean that town money was supplementing that, but do you have a mechanism to accept outside money for local companies and organizations who would want to donate towards scholarships for these?
We have,
Okay.
and it goes right into the fund. We have a line item set up for that too.
Okay, good. Because I know of several companies and organizations who would like to contribute to something like this, and I'm happy to
That
talk
would
with you
be
about that.
perfect. Yes, we'd appreciate that. Anything else on this? Thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other changes that you're going to see in the budget that you didn't see in early January is the deletion of $30,000 from the capital outlay that's been zeroed out. We moved the playground program leaders' wages back to the general fund. We added, again, the 7751 for the summer teen, and the addition of $2,000 for staff development for the second year of the executive development program that I am going to be attending. Okay, just as a general synopsis of what your general fund supports for rec, it's operational and maintenance expenses of the facilities, pool upkeep, resurfacing of the courts, supplemental programs such as the senior programming, the playground program leaders, summer salaries, some holiday activities. It also pays for the administration staff, the maintenance staff, and lifeguards when they're guarding. When they're not guarding, it comes out of revolving fund, bathhouse. And again, there's the asterisk about the wage coverage, and it also covers the purchase of coming here fund stickers. Now, that 7751 is in your budget, as you see now, so if you decide it's not worth it, we can always go back to the drawing board for next year because it hasn't gone over the past couple of years. But we think it's a population that needs to be addressed. Okay, any questions moving forward? Okay, I broke this down into categories according to how your budget is laid out. So the first budget layout is rec administration. And that's going to be down 15%, 15.17%. The administrative assistant has been moved from administration to operations. So even though administrations has gone down, you'll see operations go up. We've also consolidated uniform expenses into one line item, which is in operations now. And we realigned staff development and onboarding. For this fiscal year, our total between the two came to $4,500. Next year, the total of the two will be $7,000, which accounts for that $2,000. Plus a little bit more just because things go up. You'll notice in your budget that the medical services has been zeroed out because that's paid out of operations. So we might as well just delete that. And mileage has been reduced. It's been cut in half because we created a new line item in the revolving fund that when we're doing programming mileage, it comes out of the revolving fund instead of the general fund. And I think that's it for that. Any questions on this section? Recreation operations, again, you're going to see the increase, 54.23%, the transfer of the position of the administrative assistant, and it also contains uniforms. This line item would contain the proposed or the written-in team program leader, if approved. The wage coverage through the recreation operations is 75% for the administrative assistant and senior programmer. The other 25% gets paid out of the revolving fund and 100% for the playground leader. Buildings and grounds, overall increase of 8.77, mainly due to pay increases. I want to note that the electricity has gone down in this budget because we're separating out some of the lights that are used for softball for a specific program. And so we want to charge the specific program for that instead of charging the town. So that's why you'll see the decrease there. And it contains bathhouse and maintenance staff wages in this line, in this section. Vehicles, equipment, and maintenance. An overall increase because of diesel fuel, and our vehicles are getting older. So they just require a little more repair. But it's mainly due to the diesel fuel. Capital outlay, again, there's no capital outlay to report on this. The aquatics program, you'll see an overall decrease of 12.13%. It has the lifeguard salaries, and the lifeguards have been cut back because we haven't been able to staff the pond. So I don't expect to staff it in 2024. So it's been reduced. We also had finance fees built into this section, which has been eliminated due to the restructuring of credit card refunds. So that's gone, thanks to Lily. So, in summary, our general fund expenses are down. We have an increased forecast in revenue. And do you folks have any questions regarding the general fund?
Had a couple of real quick ones, Lisa. Where does the electricity that the users are going to end up paying, is that shown here? Under the
It's in the revolving fund. It's under revolving fund operations. Let me get there.
Page 12, underneath gasoline.
Yeah, I don't have the page numbers you guys.
She's got it memorized.
Something like that.
Do you see it, Rick?
No, I only have like 6 pages of revenues, right? I don't have
This
that.
isn't a revenue line, the electricity is an expenditure.
Right, but I thought you said you were going to be getting revenue in from the users.
Program fees.
I'm
That's
sorry,
program fees.
misunderstood.
It's not
Okay,
electricity
programs.
fees, it's just under program fees.
But we haven't counted that. And I was just curious, does Condell offer any kind of teen programs in summer? Does anybody know, or do you know?
Not during the summer that I'm aware of. They do during the school year.
Right.
And then they have fall soccer or summer soccer.
Right.
They do offer summer school, at least they have since COVID. There was a lot of money allocated towards basically trying to catch kids up after
Right, that's
COVID.
educational.
But yes, that
Not
wasn't
recreation.
recreation. Yeah, a lot of what they offer associated with the schools are camps you have to pay for.
Mhm. So the only thing right now that we offer is for 1st to 6th graders for recreation?
First
Summer,
through
yes.
sixth for a summer program, and then we have a lot of individual programs, which would be toddler through probably 6th grade.
I have a question out of curiosity. Why is our kayak rental revenues in half?
Because you're only looking at half a fiscal year. You figure our fiscal year starts July 1st.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting.
Okay, so
We
we
have
have
to shift
not
that.
accounted for, yeah.
Ah.
So it's always a mind bender when I do the budget.
So the actuals come out to be,
The actual
No,
should.
these are all
Yeah.
annualized.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all.
What are
from
you
like
talking, which
Oh, I
line?
thought it was July to July.
I'm talking about the kayak, just curiosity, the kayak
On
rental
page
revenues
4.
is $1,700, whereas the actuals was $2,829. It's trivial, but I'm just curious as to why.
The total amount taken in the 12 months from July 1st, 22 to June 30th, 23 was $2,829.
Right. And this year, we're proposing only 1,700.
It's not going to make a huge difference. I was just curious as to
Why did that?
have we lost
I think-
kayaks or?
They're based off of updated revenues that we've received recently and trying to project out what would be used. In Cunningham, the kayak rentals were down this past year from the 2008.
Then that would account for it.
Yeah.
Was it because it rained every day all the
Something like
time?
that.
Very possible, Bill, very possible.
That could be.
Well,
Mary, did you have a question?
I have a process question, and maybe this is for Nicole, in regard to the proposed Teens in Action new program, the summer program. Do you want a sense of the group about whether we support that? Is that a formal vote? How do we communicate that to Lisa and Julie?
It's really just like anything else. I mean, this is all, in the budget that we are proposing. It's not at this point a fixed document, so, I mean, to add something in or take something out midstream like this is perfectly normal. So, what you will see this reflected in the final proposed budget that'll come to you at the public hearing. But until we get through all of these meetings, we're not going to update the document itself. At least not for something this, I mean, does it have an impact on the bottom line? Yes, it does have a very small impact, but it's not pushing us up over even, I think it was like 0.2% change in the expenditure budget. It was pretty small, so it doesn't have enough of an impact that I want to reissue the budget at this point.
But I would echo Mandy's sentiment that this seems like a very worthwhile program,
Yeah.
and I would support that.
Any other members giving us a sense of positive or maybe negative of where that program's going? I'm just kind of then, or...
It's a great idea.
sense.
What's the worst that could happen? They come to work for us?
It's like Lisa alluded
Makes
to at the
perfect
beginning.
sense.
Yeah, it's like Lisa alluded to at the beginning of all this. It's a program that we have actually carried every year. We've always had a summer teen program. We haven't been able to staff it a number of years, and so we initially took it out and just like, okay, maybe we throw our hands up at this point. And then Lisa and Julia kind of redoubled their efforts to, think different about the program. And then this past week brought it back to Lily and I and said we want to stick it back in, see if we can make it work. It's again
I would
relatively.
encourage you
Yeah.
to make it work. It's a-
Yeah.
And I think, as I think Mary mentioned, or somebody, the community, business community, I would think would be willing to step up here and
Yeah,
there
that was
and
commanded.
support such a thing.
And I think if there's a big community service component of this program, I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going back to, you thought about private businesses, go visit New Hampshire Ball Bearings and get a tour or something, those
Exactly.
types of things. I think there's a lot of different directions you can go with this.
Yeah, the challenge has always been, it's not for a lack of wanting to do it, it's always been staffing. Staffing's a real
Right.
weakness, and finding the people to help, I mean, even just a couple counselors, that you need to run something like this
Sure.
have been very few and far between these last
Right.
few years.
Look at your lifeguarding experience at the
Yeah.
time, obviously.
Is that because you can't find them or you can't afford them?
Can't find them. Can't find them. Yeah, the money's there. The money's been there all along, we just can't find the people.
Yeah, Joe?
One thing I want to add that this new kind of structure might offer is perhaps a teacher who wants some summer income. I think that having been a former teacher who worked in the summers and did summer camp for a long time and supervised playground programs, I felt, 8 weeks was exhausting as a teacher who just finished working a whole school year. And so we might be able to attract some teachers who just want some summer income in a quick, easy program that's really fun. And so we might be able to, we haven't had a ton of success with that recently, clearly, with hiring teachers in, but I think that given this program is shorter in duration, we could attract teachers who just want a little bit of summer income, which would be even better than a college student just because they're certified, they've been through school, so that's a possibility I'm feeling really hopeful about.
Any other comments?
Bill wants you to bring him over to the golf course, he'll show him.
Yeah, I can give them a tour, depending on when they get
They
there.
don't have to grind it or not. Well, I was the liaison for this, and I really enjoyed working with Lisa. I was able to attend a couple of board meetings as well, and Lisa, Julie, well done on the presentation. Thank you.
We do have a part two,
Part two.
because we have one more budget.
You guys are
But
all-
I will be quick.
Well, I can reserve my
Well, you
last.
were off- You were off the hook.
I know, I should have run away.
Should have dropped that microphone there.
Okay, general expenses out of the revolving fund, it covers the community center, it covers so much of our programming fees, 25% of the administrative assistant salary like we talked about, the playground program, staff, lifeguard salaries for swimming lessons, and again, the additional cost of one of the two. So again, this is the same format that you had before, but we just have two categories in the revolving fund. The overall increase for rec operations is up 8%, that's due to pay increases. And that line item that came out of the general fund was created to transfer some of the money for some of the programs, so the taxpayers don't get hit, but the utilizers do through the use of the fields. Finance charges have been removed, again, the Summer Teen Challenge, and there's the payroll wage breakdown. Okay. Community center, overall decrease, this is because we have, you gotta love that, right?
Pretty good.
Overall decrease, because I didn't put a lot of money into this line item because of the grant. We're hopefully doing a lot of this work, so I lowered that. So overall, there's the summary. Expenses up 5.68, and revenue forecast is up 8.19%. And now I'm done, unless you have any questions.
Did you change your opinion, Rick?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, maybe I'm confused, but I'm still going back to the electricity. The electricity shows up here now, it's $4,500, where it
Yes.
didn't before?
Yes.
And where was that before?
Before it was in the general fund,
It was in general.
under buildings, grounds, and pools.
Under services,
Mhm.
they've increased over the last, for years, I guess. What is in services? What kinds of services do you?
You're talking about rec op-
Under recreation revolving.
revolving.
operations.
Services are for contractors that we bring in, like take the playground program, for instance.
Mhm.
We used to do field trips every week The bus expenses are huge right now. So we made a shift last year, we brought more people in. You've got to pay it through services as a contractor. So when we also get a new program going, like Tai Chi, that we just started, that money has got to come out of somewhere to pay for the instructor. It comes out of services. So as our program offerings go up and as we try to accommodate the price for the kids so everybody's included, services will go up.
Where does pickleball income show up?
It goes into PCC rental. So it does not show up as a program, but it goes into the revolving fund.
It's gotta be 7 or 8 million. Everybody's talking about pickleball.
Turning vacant balls into pickleball.
Is that just for fun, or do people wager on it?
I bet they wager on it.
Have you seen the mug?
Questions, I'll tell you.
They're
Go
very
back to the mug.
serious. DraftKings sports.
Go back to the mug.
Tears.
Yeah,
Well, there we go.
they're very
There it
serious.
is.
Have you played? No, I played one.
No, they're a competitive group, and sometimes it's a trick keeping them in line. But we're doing it. Yep.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, well, thanks again, Lisa.
Okay, well, thank you.
Nicole, where are we going next?
All right, now we're going to administration. So our budgets are so exciting, I did not develop a PowerPoint for them. So we'll just go through these pages very quickly. Because there's not really an awful lot to say that we haven't said at some length already. The administration budget is primarily salary driven. In executive administration, you'll see the salaries for myself and Ally, and that's about it. And then pretty much everything in there is more or less level funded. The only, aside from salary and salary related costs, the only thing that's gone up a little bit is staff development from this current year. Going back finally to doing some in-person conferences, and of course the cost of travel and housing have gone up a bit over the last few years. We are still very stable in terms of the costs that we're spending in legal fees, the amount we're spending in legal fees, which is great. We have, done a pretty good job keeping that all in line.
So we just basically pay a retainer for
We
legal
just
fees
pay
every year, and then
We pay a retainer. There are some exceptions to that retainer, so our retainer is $60,000, and then we have an additional $15,000 to cover the exceptions.
Before you scroll up,
Yep. Sorry.
I'm sorry, can you talk about the wild swings in the rentals and leases line item?
That's it. So you're looking down
the
here.
5,200 last
Right.
year.
6, 8, 52, 1,000?
I think we were charging all of our, all of the rentals that we had for, or we were planning to charge all the rentals that we had for the building project to that. Was that what that one was? You remember?
I honestly don't know why it's
remember.
5,200 for this year's budget, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But the only thing being charged out of there is the, what I would call a Xerox machine. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's not the brand that's in there, but.
Yeah.
Copier.
It's a Konica,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering. I'm not entirely, my memory is failing me. I can't remember why we had put the 5,200 in for this year's budget. And I'm not sure. It's a really good question. We do, I mean, in addition to that rental, we have the postage machine, I think, comes out of there. And I think
No, that's
it.
split over
It is split
everybody,
across
all
everyone.
departments that are using it based on prorated usage. So
Then I
it's mostly
can't-
coming out of my
I
department.
honestly can't remember. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
can't remember what our thinking was there. My apologies.
Goes down, that's a good
Yeah.
news.
Yeah,
Going
exactly.
in the right direction.
All right. Human Services, this is the budget that we assist persons in need, residents in need out of. You'll see I've highlighted a line there for direct relief. That is the money that we spend. 80% of it, more or less, goes towards rent every year. The balance of it goes to cover other expenses, electricity bills mostly, and then some other smaller costs here and there. And we're looking to increase this to 100,000. It's actually the first major increase that we've had in over 10 years to this line. This is because rents have gone up dramatically in the last few years. We've not experienced much of that because for a number of years there was a great deal of federal funds coming out of COVID money that was going towards rental assistance. Those have all dried up. We've seen a big jump in the demands on this budget, so we'd like to make sure that we have enough funds available there.
You know how many people are being assisted here?
Currently, you have a rough idea?
Currently, so are we talking about like number of folks we've seen in like the last 30 days?
No, I mean, how many people are being assisted by these funds?
Well, it depends. Some people have to come back multiple months in a row. Some people we only have to help out once. So there's kind of an ebb and flow of the folks who are assisted. I could run the numbers and see in the last year how many different clients we've had. But the amount of assistance that's provided to each client can vary wildly depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just wondering because it doesn't seem like a whole lot of money if you're doing things like paying rents.
It's not a lot of money. We have a qualification process that every household has to go through, and so it's not necessarily by individual. It's based on household circumstances. So are they working? Do they have other income? Sometimes that'll reduce the amount of assistance that they qualify for.
How many households are being assisted in?
In the last 30 days. How many people have you talked
Per
to?
year?
Okay.
In the last 30 days, I've probably had 10 or 11 different clients in.
That received assistance?
No, probably 7 were approved, and then 1 is pending.
So this is a typical month?
No, this is busy. This is a busy season. Usually after tax refunds come out and people have a little bit more in the bank account, there's a drop-off. So that usually happens in April, May, and then it's a little bit quieter in the summer. And then we see a ramp up again in fall, and then usually Christmas into February is when we see a lot of people. So it's been busy the last couple months.
Mary?
So to follow up on Carl's question, of the people who are eligible to receive assistance, are you meeting the needs of all of those people? Or what percentage of the needs are you meeting of the eligible population who apply?
Well, if they're eligible, so we focus on basic needs. So the big ones are rent, utilities, food. Like I'd say that those are the big 3. So there's a calculation involved every time somebody comes in for assistance. We look at, okay, here's the income that they have available. It could be work income, it could be Social Security disability. We tally up the income that they have available, and we tally up the expenses that would qualify as basic needs. So in addition to rent, utilities, food, we take into account what is their car payment? Have they had any medical bills that they paid? Have there been any car repairs? Things that would be deemed essential. And then if there is a shortfall, then that's the difference that we can make up. So somebody might have, they might be $1,000 behind on rent, but if the math indicates that, okay, they're really only short $300, they could pay for their basic needs, and then there's a $300 shortfall. That's what we would assist with.
Right, but what I'm really asking is, are somebody that goes through that process and the people who have applied and have a determined need, are you able to meet all of those people's needs?
We have to, by law.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no you know, yes to this person, no to this person. If they qualify, they qualify.
Yep.
So anyone who we determine has a need, we have to meet that need.
And just, you know, a little bit of background for folks who might not be familiar with the program. These are not ongoing subsidies. Towns are required by law to provide assistance to people who are poor and unable to support themselves. And so we have guidelines that help to determine whether or not that person, that household, is in fact poor and unable to support themselves on a month-to-month basis. So they have to return for further assistance. Ally does a great job referring them to other services that are available and other organizations that can help them either overcome a short-term or maybe a more systemic problem that's preventing them from being able to sustain themselves. We refer people to subsidized housing, for instance, if they qualify for elderly or disabled housing, because that's going to be more affordable than your standard rent. Things like that. So you know, town welfare is essentially a service of last resort, but it's an obligation that every town has to meet. So, you know, if someone were to come in, you know, and somehow have an enormous expense. I mean, back in the day, you used to, you know, before there was widespread Medicaid, you would see people come in with an enormous medical cost that they absolutely had to have for life-sustaining purposes. Towns would be obligated to meet that if there was no other way to meet it. And so we had funds dedicated to that. Or sometimes towns would have to pay them out of other portions of their budget to, you know, just make it happen because the state law requires that. It's not so much the case anymore. So yes, $80,000 to $100,000 has been enough. Peterborough is also fortunate to have a lot of people who donate money every year towards particularly heating fuel. We have a Keep Peterborough Warm Fund that is solely driven by donations, and that money goes to help cover the costs of heating expenses in the winter for folks who need it. And that is an enormous benefit to the taxpayer to have people who are that generous in supporting that, because that's always been a huge expense.
Yeah, I got a delivery today, and I was going to say, your spike months are driven a lot. When you say utilities are essential by what they're paying for fuel oil these days.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so that has historically been a big expense, but fortunately, Keep Peterborough Warm helps to avoid putting that on the taxpayers as a greater burden. So, it's a good program. You know, Ally is very careful with how she administers a direct relief budget. I oversee Ally and help her with some of it. I did it for many years before that. We have good guidelines that really help us determine, you know, where the funds need to go and help to point people towards other forms of assistance where that's more appropriate.
So does a typical applicant apply if they need it for 2 months? They have to apply every 30 days?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the way it works.
Yep.
And just to give you a sense of how much has been actually spent this year.
Thank you, that was my question.
It's almost $70,000. So a $100,000 budget request for next year, to be quite honest, in my mind, is insufficient. Because we have to, if they qualify, pay these bills. So,
Just 5 more months left.
Now, we had a very unusual and very expensive household request this year, which drove a lot of that. If we do run over this year, we do have other funds that we can utilize. There's some old quote-unquote worthy poor monies that are bequests that were set up over 100 years ago in some cases. We have money set aside to meet unusual needs, so we can draw on those if we need to meet a shortfall. If we were to find that, you know, the demand was continuing, then of course we would increase the budget if they were asked, you know, for an increase in the budget again. I don't think we will. As Ally alluded to earlier, we're going to see a drop off as soon as tax returns come in. People, you know, do get substantial tax returns every spring, which, you know, go towards paying that rent or whatever their other needs are.
So you don't feel, Lily, that's appropriate? If you feel it's really going to be insufficient, the 100,000, you don't want to like be proactive?
Because welfare cases are not something that are allowed to be shared publicly, not knowing all the details and just looking at just the sheer numbers. To me, I'd say you need 140,000, but I'm just looking at numbers, dividing it by months, and looking at it in that very limited scope. So if there is a case that, one case that drove those numbers up, then that makes more sense.
So if you have money left over in this line item at the end of the year, does it go into fund balance or does it stay in this line item?
Everything that is unspent and not encumbered goes to fund balance.
Other questions, comments?
Move on to assessing. This again is another one that Ally is a little bit more familiar with than I am. So Ally, you want to talk about what we're doing this year?
Sure. So the increases in both postage and services are largely driven by the same thing, which is a need for a town-wide revaluation. Yes, this is the same process that we went through in 2021. I am going to try to get ahead of this and start pushing out information to taxpayers well in advance of them seeing the reval impact their assessed values on their fall tax bill. The reason why you see that big jump in services is because the extensive amount of work that goes into performing a townwide revaluation is contracted work through Corcoran. And so you won't see a large number like this once the reval is completed. That jump that you see is because of the additional work required for a revaluation. Are there any, and the reason why postage went up is because I want to send out notices to folks in the mail in addition to having things, on the website and on the Facebook page and via MailChimp. I wanted to reach some people via mail because there are still plenty of residents who pay taxes that aren't online a lot or aren't necessarily on Facebook. So I wanted to make sure that we were reaching those folks as well with information about the revaluation. So we padded that
This
postage
reval
line out.
is triggered by market.
Yep, so largely the same things that triggered it in 2021. So during COVID, there was this massive influx of buyers, of people purchasing homes for far more than the selling rate, let alone the assessed value. We've seen a little bit of a slowdown. However, inventory is pretty much next to nothing. As soon as a house hits the market, it is sold. It is worth noting that condos are particularly popular and are going for a lot of money. So condo owners and owners of residential properties are going to see the more dramatic increases in their assessed values. However, the assessed value is only one part of the calculation. The other thing we've got to look at is the tax rate. Typically, when there's a big increase in assessed value townwide, the tax rate decreases. Of course, it all depends on what, the voters vote in at town meeting. But just because somebody's assessed value increases 30%, it doesn't mean their tax bill is going to increase 30%. Because the hope is that assessed value goes up, tax rate goes down. But our current ratio, which is the comparison of our assessed value versus the actual market value, or what the state of New Hampshire deems the market value to be, is, I wrote it down here, it's 75.4. And the acceptable ratio range set by the DRA is between 90 and 110%. So 100 is, that's the golden standard. It means the assessed values match up with the market values. And it's pretty rare that a town would be at 100% or at 100% for any stretch of time. So the DRA, you know, puts 10% variance in either direction is acceptable. And we're 15 points below the low end of that acceptable range. So a reval, it needs to happen. It would have to happen by state law once every 5 years anyway.
Would
So-
doing it now preclude the fight, would the clock start over?
Yes, yep. So we'll do one in 2024, and then we won't legally have to do another one until 2029. However,
Yeah.
when
What we're doing now.
exactly, we've got to look at the other measures of how we're doing.
I didn't quite follow what you said there. You said we are well below the 100% of actual value, assessed value. How do you know what the actual market value is if you haven't done the assessment?
So
Current
the
assessment.
state.
We know the current assessment. How do we know that that's 75% of something?
Because they look at recent sales and compare them to
Every
comparable
property
homes.
that is sold, I get a copy of the deed. So every deed that I put into our assessing database then goes to Mary Beth Walker, goes to the assessor's agent. So if there's a property that we have assessed for $230,000 that sold for $367,000, the state is the other party who has that information. They keep tabs on what property
So
is
that's
going
based
for.
on the actual sales,
Yes,
which are not
exactly.
necessarily representative of the town.
Not necessarily, no.
No, but they're representative of the type. So if it's a single-family home in a rural area, then it's going to be representative of potentially other similar single-family
Well,
homes
that's what
in
I'm
a rural
asking.
area.
Is it based on the actual data, or is somebody taking that data and trying to figure out what that then implies?
All of the above, yeah.
So the state is actually assessing what they think the town value actually is compared with what the assessed value is.
Well, they're looking at the data from the market, data from the sales, compared to the values that we have as of 2021, as of the last time we did a townwide revaluation.
No, that's not what we just said. One case is you're able to do that, but then I hear also that they are taking that information and attributing it to the houses that didn't sell.
Yes.
So it's not
For
simply a
houses
case of
that
looking
aren't
at,
on the market, yes.
so it's not, they don't simply look at the houses that sold and compare the actual sale price to the assessed value. They then take that information and say what that implies for the rest of the town. Is that right?
For the rest of similar
Like
properties within
Yes.
the town.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, they do extrapolate.
So would it be fair to compare the $170,000 that you're requesting to the 2021 actual expense for computer services of $112,000? Is that a good comparison?
There's some other increases there that are related to the work that we're doing with the new software package as well. So there's a changeover in software package that added some increased costs.
That's, just those two numbers
Yeah.
are relatively,
But yeah,
very
they're,
dramatic. It's like a
exactly.
50% increase.
Yeah, that's where you did see a jump in 2022, yes. I also think that we had an encumbrance that we spent out of in 2021, 2022 as well, which may not, no, there wasn't? I thought there was, okay.
Yes, you did say that after this year, you expected it to go down because we weren't going to be doing the same exercise next year, but it didn't happen before. How much do we expect it to go down next year? If it's 170 here,
They
Why
will,
was it-
we'll probably go back down to the 120.
So just as a follow-up to that, I know that we've used Corcoran for quite a while. Like, do we ever put that out to bid and see if there are other assessing agents that would charge us less money? Or I don't know how that works. Like, I'm completely ignorant to this. So if it's a dumb question, I apologize.
No, it's not a dumb question at all. It's actually a really good question. There's only a handful of assessing firms in New Hampshire. There's 3 that I'm aware of. Corcoran, MRI, and Susie. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head. Corcoran, we've been very happy with. Their work has been upheld at BTLA and in Superior Court in the last few years, which cannot be said for all of their competitors. There's one particular case where one of their competitors was, their work was basically thrown out of court. And because we had Corcoran that we were relying on, ours were upheld, which was really beneficial to us. So I think that, it's not just a matter of, is there more expensive, are they more expensive or less expensive? Their quality is incredibly high. And the DRA, has found very few issues with their work. The BTLA has upheld the work, and Superior Court's upheld their work, so.
So I'm not doubting their ability, but I'm asking the question still, what do the
Yeah.
other ones cost? Like, have we ever asked the question to find out?
No, I haven't had a good reason to want to make that recommendation that we look for others. They've done very well, and consistency, again, going back to what Carl was asking about before, there's a lot of subjective to the work of the assessor. Having the same set of eyes performing that subjective analysis is very beneficial. You get consistent assessments year over year.
They are good at it.
They are.
And they took a hell of a beating in 2021 and handled it very well. I mean, because every time somebody applies for an abatement based on their new evaluation, generally there's a back and forth. And they handled the whole thing very well. I read a lot of the letters that go back and forth. And
I remember
you see the guy, he's
answering that same question just a couple of years ago. We looked into it. There are a number of small firms, but they really can't handle the volume that we do. And the quality, again, I think is a big issue. So you can find somebody cheaper. But
Yeah.
get what you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those just normal practice things that
No, I agree.
putting things out to
I
bid
agree.
seems to be what we do whenever we have any contract, so I wondered how often it was done in this case, but that's.
I asked the same question a
Procedural,
couple
yeah.
years ago. So.
Going beyond the scope of this question in a way, but do we know how many, and you've talked about it before, I think, as well, how many categories there are that are used for their judgment? That is, are they divided by type of home, the type of property, the location? Are there different criteria
So
and categories?
all of that.
They came in and gave a presentation, what, 2 years ago? now?
It was after the 2021 reval, when
Right.
there was
Right.
huge number of questions from taxpayers. So there is, I wish I could remember the name of it. There is a manual about this thick that Mary Beth has to put together anytime there's a revaluation. The use pack, thank you very much. And that explains all of the mechanisms and all of the calculations that are used to come up with the values. And that is a public document. Because if I was to start going into the different categories now and try to
Be
give
way
any
outside
kind
of
of,
a budget
I was
meeting.
gonna say, we'd be here for another hour minimum.
Yeah, it's like a 3-inch binder that she puts together
It's,
every year.
it's
a lot.
massive, yeah. There's a lot of information that they consider, but they have to explain to the DRA, given any given assessment, this is how we came to this. We have to be able to answer to those assessed values. So if you have interest, or if anybody has interest and wants to see the use path report, then by all means.
We'll probably hear from them again when we do the next evaluation, and
Yep.
everybody's 30% increase, what? Great.
Are we gonna see every 3 years this assessing line item two and a half times itself? We're at 72,000 in 2021 and 188 for this coming.
The bottom line there.
Oh, the bottom.
Yeah, the one-
I'm sorry.
Is it just gonna, yeah,
So
When
the,
will it end?
When will expenses stop going up? That's a really good question. They won't. So one of the big jumps you see there is the change in computer services. There's a big increase there because we're moving away from a incredibly dysfunctional database that does not do what we need to do to a much more functional database. But there is a cost associated with that, with the new service. So there's an increase there. But I think that we're going to see there's going to be a reduced cost, not necessarily a visible one, but the amount of time that Ally and Gretchen are putting into trying to make the assessing database work for us. You'll see a reduction there, and just a reallocation of their work.
Well, and I was going to say the other thing pertaining to that software is that we pay for the software and then we're paying for the maintenance. The cost of the software is a lot more expensive than the maintenance, but that's a one-time cost. And the cost of maintaining the new software is actually on par with what we're paying to maintain the rather abysmal software we have now. So the 2023, 2024, 2025, those include both there's work that's going to be done for the revaluation, and then there's also the cost of that software. But I would expect the following fiscal year that, unless there's something that I'm not thinking of, it should actually decrease.
Yep, and there'll also be a drop-off because we won't have the BTLA inspection, or sorry, DRA inspection.
The review.
And there's extra hours involved in the DRA review is included in there as well.
Yeah.
So is it going to be back down to the $100,000 level? I don't think it's going to go that far down, but it will definitely drop off next year. And we'll look at this again.
When you say there's expenses for a DRA, is it our salaries or their state expenses?
So DRA is the state agency. They do a review of assessing services. And so there's additional cost for Corcoran Associates to be involved in that. Yes.
Okay, Nicole, we beat you up enough, I think.
Okay. And the last thing is patriotic purposes. It's been $8,000 a year every year for many, many years. They haven't asked for an increase. Presumably, they're still able, the Cheney Armstrong Post, essentially on behalf of the town of Peterborough, operates our Veterans Day, Memorial Day events. They haven't asked for an increase, so we're just leaving it as is. And then we can move on to Lily.
Hello, everyone. The increases to the budgets that I directly oversee are increasing in two significant areas. It's the insurance products for health, dental, life insurance, disability insurance, workers' comp, property liability. The health insurance rates are up 5.5%, but you're not seeing a 5.5% increase to that specific budget because it's based off of what plans people are currently on who are employed here, and projections of what people might need for the few positions that are currently unfilled vacant positions. So that's where we're at with those. Whereas the disability insurance, the short-term and long-term disability, coupled with the life insurance, those are up 18%. Workers' comp is up 16%. Unemployment is up 25%. All of these are based off of usage of these products, as well as the pool that we are in. Property liability insurance is also up 16%. So those are the large increases in all of those different insurance products. On the next page is the salaries for the staff that's dedicated to overseeing all finances, which is myself. If you go up just a touch more, you're missing my...
It's the next page, sorry.
So on my page, it's the next page. So finance operations salaries is my salary, my payroll, coordinators, manager salary, and my accounts payable individual salary. I am incredibly blessed with fantastic staff, and am so pleased and happy to report, whereas I was certainly whining a lot last year as to my understaffing, I am so pleased to be fully staffed in that area currently. So
Who hired him, Lily?
I did. It was a rough go of it, Bill. There were 7 months of incredible insanity. So the and then in the next section, operationally wise, is my tax collection salaries. I have a tax collector and a deputy tax collector, and again, I am very blessed with the staff that I have there. The team that I have is incredibly hardworking, but truly a team that really supports each other and is always asking if anybody else in the room needs help, would they have a slow moment. So it is, it's a really good group. I would like to point out that the audit services contract is down again. And that is based purely on the level of work necessary for the audit firm to audit our books. And then on the final page, debt service comes under my umbrella as well. We had one tiny bond come off, which was the Robb Farm Road bond for that neighborhood's finishing of their roads up to town standards. So that final payment was made this year, and what's coming on is the 2 new bonds, one for the highway garage and one for the current work for fire station design and engineering. So that's why the increase is there under our debt payments. So, and then TIF debt, it looks like it increased with something new. It's actually a reallocation of an existing bond payment for the parking lot behind the GAR to being charged to downtown TIF.
No, the Main Street Bridge.
Thank you, in the Main Street
Main
Bridge.
Street Bridge
Yep.
is the one that got reallocated.
Yep, thank you. So, that's nothing new there. It came out of bond principal and bond interest and into TIF principal and TIF interest. So I am happy to answer any questions. I do have some budgets that touch into water sewer for utility billing collecting, but they are also reflective of the same staff and tax collection. And before I hand it over to questions, I do want to point out that I have some revenues. Most interestingly, the interest has gone from less than $10,000 in FY22 to a projection of $660,000 for this year and next year. I have worked very closely with the bank to increase at every turn. Anytime the markets changed and increases changed at the federal level, I went back at them. And currently we have collected $376,400 in interest just this fiscal year.
Does that show up in?
That's in the revenue section
Well, that's my
of your
favorite
budget.
section. I'm on page 5. I can't.
Page 2 of revenues,
2.
at the very top is finance director revenues.
Oh, there we go.
The rest of the revenues there are the costs of health insurance that have to be paid by the enterprise funds for water and sewer, that the general fund pays their health insurance bills all year, and 25% of the staff person at recreation whose salary is a split of 75-25 out of rec revolving. So 25% of that person's health insurance is also being paid back to the general fund in those areas. I kept health insurance costs, and that's why you're not seeing a massive jump in health insurance in the insurance budget that we just looked at. The ambulance health insurance is sitting in the ambulance department's budget because it affects how much we will charge the other communities for 911 services. So I wanted to keep all costs, general fund wise, that affects the ambulance in ambulance. So if you,
We'll pour into in detail next week.
we will, so that's why that's there. What, any questions?
Well, I think we should just pause for a minute and have you repeat that interest line again.
Right.
$660,000.
It made me tingle with you. Awesome.
I just want to piggyback, I mean, I know that Bill Kennedy's favorite line, not favorite is the revenue, but I mean, I also look at the expenses side as well, and while that's an impressive number in and of itself, I just also want to take a moment to talk about the expenses and the savings that Lily has helped us with. Lisa pointed out $900 on her budget alone. Audit services is $10,000. These are two examples just in this last 2 hours. I work every week with Lily, and I hear anecdotally $900 here, $500 here, $10,000 here, $15,000 here. I hear it all the time, and she doesn't, not because she's telling me this, because I see it, and that there's no way to add up the amount of money you have saved this town in your service, and the fact that you just added on top of that the additional revenue of the very hard work you did to work with the bank over and over and over and over again.
He's a tough guy.
I'm gonna be cheesy, but I want a round of applause for Lily Whitley. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It really, it does not go unnoticed.
Thank you, Mandy.
Well, I don't want to rain in that parade, but I'm just curious.
Rain away.
Go for it.
That
It'll hurt less now.
The interest.
I
in
don't like
dividends-
criticism, Rick, so.
I was just curious, the interest in dividends is great, but what does that principle look like? Where is that, what's the principle that's generating that interest in dividends? Is that the general fund?
General fund.
All the money.
All of the money.
Right.
We operate under fund accounting, so all of our funds are held in one bank account.
Right, so our general fund was 10
And then we
million?
break out and allocate the cash
Right.
in all the different funds here, but that is the bank account, sans $2 million that is kept in the checking account. So right now we have $27 million in the bank, and $25 million is collecting interest. The other $2 million is sitting there because of, that's how the bank makes their little nut of money in order to not charge us any fees.
And then, and it's important to remember that it's not just the town's cash, but it's also the school district, the money we collect on behalf of the school district. That we
Yes,
pay to
all of our
them
cash,
monthly.
exactly. We pay the school 1/12 of what they're owed every month.
Yep. And we're able to collect the interest on it in the meantime. So
Exactly.
that is the benefit to the town of collecting taxes for the school.
Especially when the banks start to pay 5%.
It's been a really long time coming. It wasn't that long ago that I was letting everybody know that our interest rate was 0.001%. And I said, I think you put the decimal in the wrong place.
And what is it now?
It is 4.25.
So you're constantly transferring from that account to the checking account to pay bills?
I'm not, they sweep out, so the checking account is where we make all of our deposits and make all of our payments out. And at the end of the business day, they look at how much money's in there and they sweep out so that the balance into this savings account where all of the interest is generated. And if there's less than $2 million in the checking account, they sweep in so that the balance at the end of every night at the bank in the checking account is $2 million.
And then they make interest off the sweep, right? The bank does.
The sweep is where we make the
sweep is where
interest.
we
The
make
checking
the interest.
account earns no interest.
Depends which way you sweep.
Yeah, well.
That's very true.
Now, I'll just rain a little more and then I'll turn it over to someone else. Like you take the $660,000, which is great, and if you had, let's say your balance was $25 million for the year, that's about 2.64 interest, according to my calculator. So there's.
We
like
go
money
down
market
to,
funds
right
for-
now, that's the balance right now, but taxes were due right before Christmas. So right now you are seeing the highest it got to was almost 29 million. But we have made 2 school payments since, which is 2.6 million. We have paid out some very large bills totaling, Cold Stone Springs is costing us almost $1 million a month in the last couple months, and it takes them much longer to reimburse. So, as you can imagine, so this is in December was the largest balance that you see anytime in the given year, and then it goes down to 12 million.
That's what I'm.
Exactly. We only collect taxes twice a year, so, but we
So you don't
are,
have a rough guess as far as our monthly balance for a year would be? You gotta say like 18 million or something?
of the cash balance?
Yeah, on a monthly basis for the year.
No,
On
it
average.
literally ranges from 30 million to 12 million.
Right.
So, no, I wouldn't average that out.
Okay.
Were you trying to average the return, the interest?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what our, kind of overall average interest rate for the year was.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't appreciate the interest that he did.
I just want to make sure we're maximizing. I know you do a great job,
Yes.
but I just want to make sure we're maximizing. I mean, there's just money market funds out there that have been, for the last, 6 months, 9 months.
Because we
5%.
use fund accounting, I can't take the money out that's used for Cold Stone Springs, that's reimbursed here, and the DOT money that's here, and the enterprise funding for sewer and water, and then all of those revolving funds. If I was to chop that out, I would have to have 15 different money market accounts of varying balances, and then, so.
We did once upon a time have a small money market account. I think we had like up to $3 million in it at any given time. But the amount of work, it dropped off to being essentially useless
Right.
when the interest rates got so low. It was a little bit of a challenge to get funds in and out of it when needed. So
Right.
once we were able to get the interest rates up on these accounts.
Yeah, and the interest rate is more, with what I have bargained with them is more beneficial than the
Yeah.
CD rates that are being offered everywhere.
Exactly.
So I feel like what has been achieved here is incredibly competitive with limited effort in terms of cash
The tools that
flowing
you
out
use, right.
on a monthly basis.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Mary.
Lily, could you talk about the unpaid property tax balance currently versus recent past?
I did not pull the updated number for right now, but I believe that we are at
Roughly.
less than $900,000 from the tax bill that went out standardly by the end of January. It's about $600,000. We experienced delays, extreme delays through the mail for this billing.
Right.
And I think that that's still impacting this. So I think that by the end of February, we'll see that typical amount of approximately $600,000 in unpaid current year taxes.
Which is usually somewhere around 8 to 10% of our total levy goes unpaid year to year, so.
Right.
And people weren't charged interest on that if they were late because of the mail.
Yes, they were.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made extreme efforts at notifying people through the newspaper. There were 2 separate newspaper articles that I gave.
Facebook posts, did direct mails.
Yeah, we emailed people that had, when we had mail that was returned to us, that we had, according to the local post office, said that the address was wrong, but the address was clearly good and correct, and we knew that that person still lived there, and we verified it with Linda to make sure that, are they still registering their car here with this address? We were able to email a number of people, contact them by phone, let them know that their bill was here, that it was due on a certain date. The tax collector and her deputy really did, I think, everything that we could think of to notify people, but no, when it's due, when it's paid late, taxes are due the same time every year.
Twice a year.
So
That's
people
online.
can't
That's
claim that they are
online also.
ignorant of the fact that taxes are due for July 1st or for mid-December.
And of course, they're available online the day they're mailed, right?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes. Mhm. It's updated daily. So at this stage, the daily interest is calculated and added to that page, so you know exactly how much is owed at any moment in time.
Speaking of property taxes, I noticed that you haven't got a projection for proposed revenues, tax collector revenues for this year.
Are you talking about the very bottom line?
Yeah, just about, it's on page 5 here. It was almost 8 million last year, proposed budget. Oh, that was MS3.
So
MS
property
434.
tax is based off of how much the general fund budget is proposed minus the revenue.
Right.
Enterprise fund for water and sewer are a net zero because they have to support themselves with user fees.
Right.
But then every other warrant article is added in minus whatever revenue is associated to them. And right now, our general fund budget plus all warrant articles that were presented by your CIP committee for capital reserve increases, you are looking at a tax collector raise and appropriate dollars of $11,400,000.
Okay.
So that accounts for the addition of the ambulance to the general fund. It includes all their revenue, but it does include all their expenses as well.
I'm the liaison with the finance department, so I must make my tributary statement as well.
It better be.
Take you to bed.
The one thing that has not been mentioned is that Lily understands the laws and rules better than anybody I've spoken with. And it's very pleasing to know that we're complying with all the laws and rules, because it's not clear that we always have. We won't go into all the details on that, but let's just say things are very well in hand there, and that's, I would say, critically important. Mandy was correct in saying that there's a lot that wasn't in this presentation that represents savings that came out of the work that Lily and her department have done. And that's immeasurable, but we do notice that. One other thing I mentioned is that you talked a little bit about shuffling the responsibilities within your department. And I think what you said was you just took on the parts that you've done in other towns, but no pay increase. Is that an accurate statement?
For the addition of the HR assistant director?
Yes.
Responsibility is correct.
So now you are the HR assistant director.
Nicole is the director of HR. So
That's a job that used to be done
when it
by-
goes to court, it's Nicole.
It used to be done by somebody else, now you've accepted that job.
Yes.
The payroll benefits manager used to be combined, that used to be the assistant HR director as well. When we had a gap, someone needed to take it over, Lily definitely stepped up, and she's held on to that. Although I think Amanda is picking up a lot of the day-to-day work, which is very helpful. Yes, no, Lily's been a tremendous asset to the town. There's no question about
And,
that.
well, and speaking, and to piggyback on Carl too, you mentioned the whole team, and I did not mention that, but it is worth mentioning. And I think that not only that, but the whole team is dedicated not only for compliance, but also in trying to find ways to save money too. And definitely want to make sure to say that, because I can pretty much guarantee right now your team is watching this.
They are.
Because they watch all public meetings. And I just think that, I think there are very few departments where every, employee of the department is watching public meetings from home on their personal time. And so it's just a testament to the dedication of your staff, so thank you.
There'll be a quiz first thing in the morning.
Well, I actually felt bad because I was like, I'm going to come in tomorrow, and they're just really, you didn't mention me. So. Thank you, Tanya. What about me? Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you, Beth.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Nice job, ladies, thank you very much. I don't think we had a chance to look at minutes from last week. Ally, we did catch up on that?
The minutes will be up
And the next
for
select-
approval at the, yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Tyler?
Is there anything else we can talk about for like an hour?
And why?
What would you like to talk about, Tyler?
Anything but write-in campaign?
Yeah.
I forgot all about that.
Yes,
That's where we have to go.
Oh, no.
well, if you're interested on the Republican side, with 2% of the statewide vote in, Nikki Haley is leading, 50.9%.
2%.
Too early to vote.
She swept Dixfield nuts.
She swept
Yeah.
Dixfield, yeah, all 6 votes.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. She moved.
Second.
All right.
Al, second, thank you. Thank you,
Very
everybody.
interesting. I did the morning thing at the.
She said she was gonna have
at
extra
the-
people there.
As a ballot clerk, and it was very interesting crew, and also just packed. I got there at 1 o'clock and it was packed.